But George Carlin had said, Kunal, that it is the duty of the stand-up comedian to see where the line is drawn and then cross it deliberately. And in a piece that I wrote long ago, I said stand-up comedians, at least when there was still some political stand-up happening in India other than you and Aisi Tesi. I think now, other than the both of you, or rather four of you, no one's really doing political comedy. Stand-up comedy is pushing the boundaries of what all we can say, and then journalists can fill in that space and kind of do their dance. But they are not the ones who are pushing the boundary of how far you can go. To what extent do you think it's true? To what extent do you think it's appropriate? Or are we burdening comedians with something that is not their burden?
So basically, as a comedian, you should follow some rules to doing comedy. Like for me, it's honesty, if I'm honest about what I'm saying, and funny. So if it's funny and honest, that's the first, passing. Like that's the first line that you are like, okay, fine, this is, funny, this is honest. It doesn't come from a place of just bias. So comedy does cross that line, but in the Indian context, it is slightly different, because in Indian context, where we are in our lives today, just quitting your job and doing comedy is crossing that line. Just where you are socially, taking that risk and doing full-time comedy is already a very huge risk, because it's not like our arts or our comedy is so Carlin himself, late 60s product, like Lenny Bruce, George Carlin were both late 60s. That time America needed this sort of comedy, this sort of crossing the line. They were both chased by authorities, Lenny Bruce and George Carlin, for a long time. I think in the Indian context, I think finding that line and crossing it is kind of impossible. But I think just to be provocative, where you divide the audience opinion by 50-50, that's a good start.
Right.
Like all the other comedians used to divide the audience opinion by 80-20 sometimes. Like when America went through their tragedy of 9/11, in about 6 months, comedians had perspectives and jokes and opinions about it. In the Indian context, that's impossible. And that's maybe not the correct thing also to do, given our culture, our sort of upbringing of, like, elders in the room say quiet, you sit down, you're not to be heard, you're very young. All these things also play a part in our comedy and what our comedians choose to do.